Airbag operation and service. An airbag system, also called inflatable restraint system, supplements the protection of seat belts by deploying a high-strength nylon bag during frontal crashes. Most manufacturers are now installing airbags in their cars, vans, and light trucks. With millions of airbag-equipped vehicles on the road, well-trained technicians are needed to service these vehicles. This video will summarize the operation and service of typical airbag systems.
I saw the car before it hit us. You know, that scary feeling that you know there's going to be an impact, and that awful sound.
The driver you've just heard was able to walk away from a serious auto accident, and he attributes that to an important safety device in his car.
Safety experts agree that today's supplemental airbag is one of the most effective forms of protection for front seat occupants who also wear their safety belts. Let's look at a real life-saving example. Lee Miskowski is living proof that airbags work. Miskowski's vehicle was severely damaged when it collided with another vehicle, but none of the front seat occupants of his car was seriously injured. And Miskowski credits the airbag system in his town car for that. Still, there are some myths about them. Perhaps the biggest one is this.
I think the major concerns that I'm worried about is if the pre-explosion, if they blow up before an accident actually happens.
We have never had a report of an inadvertent deployment or the bag deployed when it shouldn't have while the vehicle was in operation.
Once inflated, an airbag cannot be reused, but your auto insurance will likely cover the replacement cost. Also, many insurance companies are now offering policy discounts to drivers with airbag-equipped cars. The airbag acts as a cushion, helping to protect the face, head, and upper chest. Here's how the system works. Sensors in the front section of the car determine whether a frontal crash is severe enough to cause the airbag to inflate. Minor fender benders and jolts from road bumps and potholes won't activate the system. Also, the airbag is designed to work only in frontal crashes. Safety experts emphasize the airbag does not replace safety belts. After impact, it takes about 40 milliseconds for the bag to fully inflate. Then the bag fully deflates in another 2 seconds. When activated, the airbag is fully inflated in a blink of an eye. The airbag fills with nitrogen gas, which is harmless and found in the air we breathe. The gas is released through side vents, allowing the airbag to deflate quickly. The body and frame structure of new cars are also designed to help protect the drivers and passengers from injury during crashes. The front of the car is designed to absorb energy and crush upon impact to reduce change of motion forces in the passenger compartment. The sides of the car are also reinforced with hidden steel bars that bolt or are welded inside the doors. Strengthened space frame rails also reduce body protrusion into the passenger compartment during side impacts. Studies have proven that these safety features greatly reduce the chances of injury during an auto accident. A typical airbag system consists of one or more front impact sensors, one or more arming sensors in the passenger compartment, an electronic control unit, an airbag module, and the related wiring. The system only operates with frontal impact severe enough to warrant deployment of the airbag. The front impact sensors can be attached to the frame, to the radiator support, or another component near the front of the vehicle. A wiring harness connects these sensors to the electronic control unit. The control unit is usually in the passenger compartment of the vehicle. In more detail, here is how a typical inflatable restraint system operates. With head-on impact, one of the front impact sensors must close and output a signal. For the bag to fire, a safing or arming sensor in the passenger compartment must also close. Both these sensors must send a signal to the ECU. Then the ECU can send voltage to the airbag so that it can deploy and protect the driver from injury. The arming or safing sensor can be located under the dash somewhere, on the firewall, or in the center console. One type of sensor uses an inertia ball held in place by a magnet. Electrical contacts feed any impact signal into the wiring harness. The inertia ball is sometimes gold-plated to assure a good electrical connection. With frontal impact, the rapid movement of the sensor throws the ball forward and into the stationary contacts. This closes the electrical circuit and signals a possible collision. Another sensor design uses a coil contact wrapped around a weight. With impact, the weight rolls out and closes the circuit to signal a frontal impact. The electronic control unit must determine if a front sensor and an arming sensor have both detected deceleration. If it receives these signals, the ECU sends voltage through the wiring harness to the airbag for its deployment. The driver's side airbag is carefully folded and encased inside the steering wheel trim cover. Under the bag, a small initiator charge is used to ignite sodium azoide pellets. The charge fires when voltage is sent to it from the ECU. The pellets then burn and produce nitrogen gas that expands and blows out through a diffuser to cool the gas flow into the bag. As the bag expands, it tears the steering wheel trim cover open and deploys. Many cars also are equipped with a passenger side airbag as well. It operates and is constructed similar to the driver's side airbag. However, it is much larger in size when deployed and inflates about 3 times bigger than the driver's side bag. The passenger side airbag is mounted in the dash behind a pop-open lid or cover. The electrical connectors are provided for easy airbag assembly replacement. The folded nylon bag, initiator charge, sodium azide pellets, and diffuser are mounted together in a module or airbag assembly. The ECU sends current to both the driver's side and passenger side initiators simultaneously so that both fire and deploy together. After deployment, most manufacturers recommend that you disable the system, replace the airbag, all system sensors, test the system, repair any damaged wiring, and then retest the system again. To disable the airbag, remove the battery positive cable. You might want to wrap the cable end with electrical tape to prevent it from accidentally touching the battery and firing off the new airbag. Some service manuals also instruct you to pull the airbag fuse. Note that many systems can fire the airbag using a circuit capacitor, even with a battery disconnected for 5 minutes. When working around a deployed airbag, remember that the chemicals used in the module are considered hazardous materials. The powder that blows out of the back vent holes during deployment can be an irritant to your eyes and skin. While wearing rubber gloves, a respirator, and eye protection, cover the vent holes on the side of the deployed bag with tape to prevent further contamination. After turning the blower on high and turning it back off, use a vacuum cleaner to remove the powder from the dash, AC vents, seat, carpeting, and other surfaces inside the passenger compartment. Then you can remove the screws on the bottom of the steering wheel that secure the old airbag module. Lift the bag assembly out of the steering wheel just enough to gain access to the wire terminal on the bottom of the airbag assembly. Disconnect the wire and discard the old bag. Never throw an undeployed airbag in the trash because someone could be injured if it fired accidentally. Inspect the steering column for compression damage. You may want to remove the steering wheel to inspect the clock spring. Remove the nut that secures the steering wheel to its shaft. It is often easiest to unscrew the large nut using a ratchet and socket. If not already provided, scribe mark the wheel and shaft so that they can be realigned. Then mount a wheel puller on the steering wheel. By tightening the puller screw, you will pop the steering wheel off. Next, use snap ring pliers to open and remove the circlip, securing this clock spring. Lift out the clock spring and inspect it for damage. Replace the clock spring if needed. To install a clock spring, use service manual directions to center it. Rotate the clock spring all the way in one direction, then rotate it in the other direction until centered halfway between the two extreme positions. If not centered properly, the spring can be broken when the steering wheel is turned to one side. Reinstall the clock spring in reverse order of removal. Install and seat the snap ring. Make sure the snap ring is fully down in its groove in the steering shaft. To reinstall the steering wheel, feed the airbag wire up through the correct hole in the steering wheel. Make sure you align the marks on the wheel and shaft so that the spokes of the wheel are level with the front wheels facing straight ahead. Use a torque wrench to tighten the steering wheel nut to exact specifications. You sure don't want the steering wheel to come off when someone is driving the car. When handling a new airbag assembly, use caution. Wear eye protection and always keep the airbag away from your face and body. Whenever the airbag is placed on your workbench or toolbox, the bag should face up and the metal housing down. This will keep the heavy metal housing from flying up and injuring someone in case of accidental deployment. Remember, the airbag should face up. When carrying the bag, hold it away from your body and keep it right side up. With battery power still disconnected and the fuse pulled out, reconnect the wiring to the new airbag. Install any plastic locking pins that secure the connector. Fit the bag down into the wheel and install its screws. When working, always remember to keep your hands out of the inside of the steering wheel when installing the new airbag. Accidental deployment could easily break a hand or an arm. Also, since the bag shoots out at over 200 miles per hour, keep your head and chest away and to one side of the new airbag. Always refer to your service manual if in doubt about how to service sensors. Procedures vary. Generally, many manufacturers recommend replacement of all sensors after a crash and airbag deployment. To replace the front impact sensors, locate them. They can be on the radiator support, frame rails, or a similar location at the front of the vehicle. Again, make sure the system is disabled before removing the sensors, or you could fire the new airbag if power is still available. Remove any locking pin on the connectors, then pop open the connector and disconnect the wires. Always visually inspect wiring for signs of damage, especially around areas of severe body damage. Wires can easily be cut and ruined during a crash. Unscrew the screws that hold the impact sensors on the vehicle. Remove the old sensors and discard them. Make sure you have the exact replacement sensors. When installing them, check that the arrows on the sensors face the front of the car. Each arrow must face forward so that the sensor can work as designed. If you install one of the sensors backwards without the arrow forward, it will be impossible for the airbag to deploy upon frontal impact. If you drop a new sensor during installation, replace it. You might need someone to help you hold and install the new impact sensors when in tight quarters. One person may have to hold the sensor in place while the other person installs the mounting screws. Tighten the sensor mounting screws properly to prevent loosening and a possible system malfunction. Raise the car if needed to reconnect the wiring harness to the sensors. Again, install any locking pin that prevents accidental disconnection of the terminals. Mentioned briefly, the arming or safing sensor in the passenger compartment may be under the dash or console. If under the console, remove the shift knob and the screws that secure the top of the console. Lift off the top of the console without damaging it and remove the sensor. Pry out any small locking pin, then use the appropriate procedure for disengaging the terminal and freeing the harness from the sensor. Again, make sure the new sensor is installed with its arrow facing the front of the vehicle. It won't protect the driver if the bag deploys on a rear-end collision. Reconnect the sensor's electrical terminal. Install any locking pin, and then bolt the new sensor back down inside the console. Reassemble the console in reverse order of disassembly. Make sure you install all wires, screws, and clips correctly to prevent rattles, inoperative components, and unhappy customers. A common mistake is to over-tighten sheet metal screws, stripping them out. When reassembling the dash or console, remember to take your time. Align all parts and never try to force screws or clips into place because you will damage components. After console reassembly, double-check that everything works properly. Check all indicator lights, the cigarette lighter, and shift the transmission into each gear. To service under-dash sensors or to access the electronic control unit, you will normally have to remove under-dash covers. This will allow you to gain access to these components. Normally, the electronic control unit for the airbag does not have to be replaced until after the car has been in several accidents. However, electrical tests may find a bad ECU that would require replacement. Make sure you have the correct part number when replacing the ECU. Fit it back up into place in the dash, then tighten its mounting screws securely. Reinstall all covers and tighten all fasteners properly to avoid rattles. Before releasing the car, always scan the airbag system to retrieve any trouble codes. Connect the scanner to the diagnostic connector in the engine or passenger compartment. A scanner will quickly check the airbag's electrical systems for problems. Follow manufacturer's directions to read any past or present trouble codes. If trouble codes are found, refer to the service manual for exact testing procedures for isolating and fixing the trouble. The manual will give wiring diagrams and specific instructions, as well as tree testing charts, so that you can find the problem quickly and accurately. After correcting any trouble, clear any codes and test again. If you have to make wiring repairs, use the special tools and materials recommended by the service manual. For example, when splicing a broken wire, the manual will direct you to strip off a specific amount of insulation. A special insulated barrel splice connector is then deformed down around the wire ends using the proper crimp jaw on electrical pliers. A heat gun can then be used to shrink the insulation around the repair, making it waterproof. In ending, remember that the lives of the driver and passenger depend on you. They count on you to service the airbag system properly.